Assalamu alaikum, Javed Khan Jadoon with Forum English Edition. American troops conducted a hasty and chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan in August 2021. 2 decades of war, trillions of dollars spent, to be very precise, $2 trillion spent on warfare in Afghanistan, thousands of US and NATO troops killed over there. Ironically, the war which started with the ouster of Taliban and then it ended with power given back to Taliban in Afghanistan when the American troops left the country. But according to US Department of Defense, more than $7.1 billion of US military equipment was in the possession of Ashraf Ghani government when the American troops left Afghanistan and the government fell to Taliban. 500,000 weapons obtained by Taliban have been lost, sold, or smuggled to terrorist groups. The UN believes that some of these weapons have fallen into the hands of terror groups like TTP and Al-Qaeda affiliates. In February 2025, a report by the United Nations revealed that Al-Qaeda affiliates such as TTP, the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, were either acquiring weapons captured by Taliban or purchasing them from the black market in the country. The Afghan Taliban admitted at least half of the equipment is now unaccounted for. Taliban commanders were allowed to retain 20% of the seized US weapons, and these weapons were eventually sold in the black market. President Trump expressed concerns about the leftover weapons and wanted these to be back with the US. But Taliban considered these weapons as war bounty. The region, particularly in particular our country, is at the peril as a result of these weapons falling in the hands of non-state actors. How the terrorists can be stemmed given the staggering number of weapons available to these terror outfits in Afghanistan? That is the question and more we'll be asking from our panelists today. We are joined by Air Marshal retired Saeed Khan in our studio. Later, we'll be joined by Dr. Mari Sultan, Chairperson SASI, South Asia Strategic Stability Institute. Thank you so much, Air Marshal Saeed, for joining us in studio. So huge problem for Pakistan in particular, and of course the region as well. As I pointed out, the terror outfits have complete access to the grey market in Afghanistan, and all the state-of-the-art weapon systems like the assault rifles, including M16s and M4, grenade launchers, RPGs, and night vision goggles, and so many other weapon systems are available in the black market, as pointed out, quoting the United Nations report as well. How daunting task is in front of Pakistan's security forces, given the number of weapons available to them. And of course, there is a country on the eastern border which is providing these terrorist organizations like TTP and the BLA, all kinds of assistance, including financial. So for Pakistan, the challenge is huge unless the global community in general and United States in particular looks into it. And the weapons they left behind, though there have been statements, but not a very serious kind of action taken by President Trump.
First of all, Javed Sahab, thank you very much for inviting again to your program. You are very right in saying that it's a daunting task in front of the Pakistani security forces now. And it is more so because recovery of all these weapons that have been sold in the black market cannot be recovered now. Like you have quoted the names of the organizations that are very active in the black market buying these weapons, and one of them is TTP and the other one is the BLA, which concern Pakistan. This has primarily been because once the Taliban, they took over Afghanistan, they agreed to a 20% weapons to be controlled by the local commanders. Now the local commanders have pretty, they are pretty independent in their own areas, and they're not answerable even to the Taliban for that. Uh, the good thing, Javed Sab, is that the weapons that are being used uh, that are being, I would say, black marketed are the ones that are being used by the um, um Al Qaeda affiliates. And they are the assault rifles, the machine guns, the night vision goggles. And our security forces, especially in Balochistan and KPK, are facing a daunting task, especially because of the night vision goggles, where if you look at it, there has been a rise of almost 250% since 2021 in both these provinces.
Attacks almost
And
doubled
attacks
since
are primarily at night and not during the day. And that is simply because that these two outfits now have access to American equipment. Uh, uh, the answer to this problem is that we should, request United States to buy back these weapons, or we should find another way through our friends in the Gulf that we must, buy out these weapons from Afghanistan, because till the time they are available in the black market, countries like India will always be there to buy it for Al Qaeda affiliates and
But
create.
strangely, Marshall said the Taliban leadership they themselves admitted that half of the number of weapons have been unaccounted for. It's very strange how it is possible millions and millions of weapons and worth billions and billions of dollars have gone missing. Unaccounted for means that either they were deliberately given, rather sold into the black market, or being provided to terror outfits. So, the source of the problem lies in Kabul, the regime in Kabul, which has not been able to create a system of governance over there. They are not into the orbit of the global community, not being recognized. They have got their own ways. So far, they continue to behave like an organization rather than a government. This is not going to go away, this problem of weapons availability in Afghanistan.
Like I said, Javed Sab, it is now next to impossible after 3 years to recover those weapons.
Okay.
And when we talk 50% of the weapons, we are talking of something like 500,000 weapons, because there were over 1 million weapons that were left behind. The unfortunate thing is that Afghanistan has no regular army, it has no regular government, and it has no regular relationship with most of the countries of the world. And as such, for their survival, they are dependent on 2 or 3 countries who fund them for carrying out nefarious activities around, especially with their neighbors. So the answer is very tricky, Javed Saab, to answer that how these weapons will be recovered. The only thing is the right decision taken by the government of Pakistan to take these Al Qaeda affiliates head on and destroy them, because it is not possible to recover these weapons now because they have been sold. They have, like we were saying, that the Afghan government itself allowed the local commanders to use 20% of their weapons for their own purposes. That is to sell them off in the black market.
They could keep them, rather they eventually ended up in the black
in the
market.
hands of, it was actually a bribe to them to be over there. But what 20% in a country where there is no law, there is no organization to overlook such activity, that 20% could very easily have swelled to 50% of the weapons in control of those things.
But look at the irony.
And the unfortunate thing is that as per the culture of Afghanistan, and it has been reported by many UN organizations, that it is a normal practice between commanders to gift each other such high quality weapons.
Look at the irony that the war started in Afghanistan with the ouster of Taliban regime. The country was carpet bombed, and a very large number of Taliban fighters were killed over there. 2 decades of warfare, $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan, thousands of NATO and American troops killed over there. Eventually, they literally handed the power back to Taliban and left in such a chaos, such a disorderly kind of a withdrawal, reminiscent of their withdrawal from Vietnam. So ultimately, the issues and all the problems and complexities have been created by the Americans in Afghanistan and in the region as well. And we, as a country, as a peaceful country, we ended up dealing with this gigantic issue of terrorism in our region, the legacy of the American war in Afghanistan.
Uh, Absolutely correct, Javed Sab. This is the only reason why there has been a rise in, activities by these organizations after the Americans have left, because now they want to spread their type of Islam or their type of thinking to the rest of the world. And unfortunately, they are all uneducated. They have no clue of what Islam is, and they have a very bad sense of democratic understanding of principles in the world. So I think the answer is for all countries to be a hard state for Afghanistan. We have to close our borders. We have to be very strict with what comes from Afghanistan into our country and what goes from our country to that country. And we have to ensure that such activities, although a country like India is providing them enough money to buy the weapons from the black market, but those weapons should not be allowed to be used in Pakistan.
But given the porous border, 2,500 kilometers long border, among the most difficult borders in the world, it is extremely difficult to manage, extremely difficult to maintain vigil and provide security to every part of the border, which is, of course, has been fenced as well. Now, given this difficulty, Pakistan's complexities to deal with this issue of terrorism becomes more complicated. As you pointed out, the other factor, which is, of course, an important factor in spawning terrorism in Pakistan, that is of, India factor. India is providing, as you said, the all kind of financial support to these terror outfits, so they can buy weapons from the grey market in Afghanistan, use them in attacking Pakistan's security forces. So to speak, difficulty level is so complex. Dealing at one stage with the terror outfits operating from Afghanistan, the terror safe havens, and then the Indian factor, the Indian dimension, which complicates Pakistan's challenge further, isn't it?
Javed Sab, you are highlighting a very pertinent point. We must all remember that these are not the Taliban, that were formed in the 1980s and who had an ideological understanding to fight against the Russians. These are the second or the third generation of those Taliban, and they are the people who have seen that there is lot of money in being war has its own economy, and they are now actually the beneficiaries of that economy. They cannot live in peace. If we create an environment of peace, then all these people who are earning money from other countries, their earning will stop. And that is why they want to keep the countries into a perpetual state of conflict. And that is why, Javed Sahab, I am of a very firm opinion that, the regional countries of Central Asia and South Asia must form, a union in which we force Afghanistan to keep these Al-Qaeda affiliates within Afghanistan, create opportunities for them through trade and other means, but do not allow them to come into your own country.
I think why it is important, because if you look at the Daesh, which is operating from Afghan soil, they attacked a concert hall in Moscow, killing about 145 people, setting the building on fire, and claiming the responsibility as well. And then, as I pointed out, the UN, the February 2025 UN report, which states that Al-Qaeda affiliates, including TTP, but apart from TTP, the movement of Uzbekistan and Islamic movement of Uzbekistan and the East Turkestan Islamic movement and Daesh. Now, these three terror outfits are posing threat to Central Asia and Russia as well. So it is important for them as well to join hands with Pakistan, because it is a very clear and present danger which emanates from Afghan soil. Given the number of terror outfits operating in Afghanistan, creates the kind of impression that Afghanistan is a hotbed of terrorism. So it's not only Pakistan which is being threatened, Central Asian republics. And of course, you must have seen several reports that it is a very good recruiting ground for terror outfits as well, as far as the Central Asian republics are concerned.
Javed Sab, you're very right in highlighting it, and that is why, if you remember, it was end August, September 2025 when a meeting was held of 10 countries in Moscow, and out of those 10 countries,
the Moscow format,
yes, and out of those 10 countries, 8 countries were complaining that outfits from Afghanistan are creating trouble in their country, and all those are the neighboring countries of Afghanistan. So,
but isn't it about time to move beyond statements and then
yes,
go for some
and
kind of a
I
mechanism?
agree with you. And that is why I am of a very strong opinion that there should be a local, organization formed which should, force Afghanistan, both militarily as well as economically, to, keep these affiliates within the boundaries of their own country. And if they need money, we should provide them money. If they need any type of coercion, we should provide that coercion for them. But we should ensure that none of these affiliates should be able to cross into the border of the other country. And you are very right that in Pakistan, it's almost 2,700 kilometers long border with Afghanistan. But most of the places have been now, barbed wire by Pakistan. And I think that if we use drones and UCAVs very intelligently, we cannot 100% reduce the incursion into Pakistan, but we can reduce it to by 70 to 80%. And we should give the local operators, the permission that if they see any incursion from any place into Pakistan, they should have the orders and ability to take out those infiltrators there and then, and no questions asked. Because you are right in highlighting that nobody can control a 2,700 kilometer porous border, but then we are into such a situation that we have to
manning such a long border and a very difficult border as well,
yes,
to start with. If we look at the ongoing process of negotiations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, of course, the Qatar and Turkey mediated talks were held in Doha. The both countries agreed to have a ceasefire, to formalize it in a way. And now the second round is going to be held in Istanbul. Tomorrow. But once again, I would like to highlight the complexity of the issue. These two countries can facilitate the two states, the two nations, the Afghan Taliban government, the de facto government in Kabul, and Pakistani government. They can facilitate them to sit together and talk about their own grievances or issues or concerns or whatever. But ultimately, it has to be a bilateral mechanism which has to be in place between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And there should be a lessening of trust deficit as well between Kabul and Islamabad. And then we can move beyond that, and then we can have a regional mechanism which should involve Russia, China, Central Asian republics, Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan as well. These are the countries which are surrounding Afghanistan, not the Arab countries, not to certain extent Iran and Turkey. They do have influence in Afghanistan. But should we be relying solely on Arab and Turkish mediated negotiations process, or should we go for some very concrete, very comprehensive, very holistic mechanism which must involve the regional countries we talked about?
I would suggest that we should undertake all these options simultaneously. Javed sir, Pakistan has been a very good neighbor for a very, very long time. We have hosted more than 4 million of the Afghanis for almost 40 years now.
And still about 3 to 3.5 million Afghan refugees
Afghanis are with us. And we are treating them very nicely. They have become a part of a society. Unlike Iran, we gave them whole of Pakistan to settle in there doing good business. And actually, if you give them an option to go back, they don't want to go back. But like I said earlier, that the TTA government in Afghanistan finds this semi-war state as very monetarily, good for them, because only when they create these unrest in different parts, in different countries, do other countries provide them money for these things? So the war has its own economy, and they have actually gotten habitual of this economy. Our DGISIs, our defense ministers, our permanent representatives to Afghanistan have been going again and again in these last 3 to 4 years and requesting them that they should, behave like a good state, and we will provide all facilities for them to improve economically. If you remember, Javed sir, Pakistan even went to China, and we got Afghanistan included into CPEC too. And with that, they were supposed to earn something like $3 to $4 billion a year. But that $3 to $4 billion, in my view, Javed sir, would go to the Afghan government. It would not go into the pockets of the people who are sitting in the government at
Rather
this
the
time.
warlords.
Exactly. So these warlords are now wanting, they have to be treated with a strong fist. And I agree. We must, the actions we have taken in the last 2 weeks, I think were very timely. We have told them that if we have had enough of your aggression, we have had enough of your supporting of the TTP, whom they were actually saying were never there in Afghanistan. And then Pakistan proved it to them through, intelligence means that they are there. And when we took them out, that is why when the crying started. So we must continue with this hard stance with them. And the ultimate thing should be that we should form a mechanism between the countries of Central Asia and South Asia and ensure that the countries like India and Afghanistan do not stabilize this region any further. You forgot to, forgot to mention China too. China is also one of the countries which has direct borders with Afghanistan and is affected by Islamic militism, which is being
Turkestan Islamic movement. Yes, of course. If you look at the dogma or the paradox which is being faced by the Afghan Taliban government, that is of the recognition. Why they have not been able to comprehend or understand, even after 4 years in power, they came into power in August 2021, it's more than 4 years. They have not been able to understand that with human rights violations, with the women's rights violations, with women education issues, and most importantly, the terrorism issue, which is being, it is emanating from Afghan soil. Recognition should be the topmost priority of the Taliban de facto regime in Kabul. And that could only come by if they start behaving like a responsible state, which they are not. Report after report by the United Nations, by other organizations, the facts and figures given by Pakistan and so many other countries as well, those who have been expressing concerns, recognition is not coming by. So isn't it about time for the Taliban regime in Kabul that they should start behaving like a state rather than a rogue state?
Javed Sahab, you're talking very rationally. Every rational person should think the way you're proposing. But unfortunately, the government in Afghanistan is not a rational government. First of all, they are an interim government and they just want to make a lot of money till the time they are in power. Secondly, Afghanistan is no more working as a normal state. It is actually, the whole of Afghanistan is divided into warlords, and the warlords are controlling, their own areas within Afghanistan. And TTA may have may have a relationship with those warlords, but is actually not controlling those warlords, and as such is not controlling the whole of Afghanistan. They are actually afraid of Al-Qaeda and its affiliates like TTP, BLA and other like Muslim Islamic State. And they're afraid because these affiliates are very strong militarily. And they are afraid that if they try to act like a normal state and try to control them, these affiliates will rise against them, and they are strong enough to topple them in Kabul. So that is why this fear of being toppled is keeping them
aligned with the terrorist
aligned with the
Please
terrorists.
allow me, we are joined by Dr. Mari Sultan, Chairperson, South Asia Strategic Stability Institute. Thank you so much, Dr. Maria, for your time for English edition of the forum. Dr. Mari Sultan, we are talking about these $7.1 billion as per the DOD report, weapons left behind in Afghanistan. If these weapons found their way into the gray market, into the black market, and then the non-state actors, they started having access to these weapons. And these organizations, of course, include, which was reported by the United Nations in February 2025. The report reveals that Al-Qaeda affiliates such as TTP, the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, were either acquiring weapons captured by Taliban or purchasing them from the black market in Afghanistan. This is the conundrum Pakistan is facing, apart from the entire region is being threatened by such organizations, and there's also the presence of Daesh as well. Air Marshal Saeed Khan Sahib is in our studio. We are discussing about the daunting task Pakistan has in front of it to deal with these terror organizations like TTP and the BLA organizations, which of course are the Indian proxies as well. So how complex this issue is as far as Pakistan is concerned, given this very large number of weapon market available in Afghanistan and finances coming from India. Dr. Mari Sultan.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Jizan. I think that's not a question, but that seems to be the utmost statement of fact in terms of what we are dealing with on ground. Now, coming to the situation at hand. The situation at hand is this, that this $7.12 billion worth of weapons which was left behind are not just ordinary weapons. These are military-grade weapons. Second issue is the number of terror organizations which continue to plague not only Afghanistan but also the regional dynamics, including regional countries such as Pakistan. And the third is the consistent factor and the non-recognition by the Taliban regime that they have any responsibility towards their people or, for that matter, towards international security. But the fact of the matter is this, that this was a government in transition. The fact of the matter is this, that they were warlords. These were people who had actually, gained momentum on the basis of a just, an unjust occupation and actually bringing normalcy and peace back to Afghanistan. Now, what's interesting is that it is not in Afghanistan that these terror organizations are working. What we are looking at is that these terror organizations are finding their way in Pakistan, they're finding their way in the other parts of the region. And what needs to be understood are the following facts. One, that if the character of the Afghan state changes, which it has, if it changes to a narco, drug, and weapons, illegal trade market, then it will have a dynamic of its own. And once that dynamic, happens, for now, the Taliban regime thinks that it's a negotiating factor, that they have got Al-Qaeda, they've got ISIS, they've got all these other, fascinating terror organizations within them. And these things are actually bringing the world's attention towards them. But what kind of attention? They suffered airstrikes. The people are being dislodged from all the regional countries. And then most importantly, these illicit weapons are actually creating another dynamic in which the actors who are going to come forward are not going to fear the Taliban. They're not going to fear Taliban's, apparatus, but they are going to try to create their own fiefdom. So in this fiefdom, they're going to create these small, fortified terror placements, these placements which would be backed by these weapons, because these weapons, if a weapon costs $1,000, it is being sold at $300. So it's not a market which is going in positive, it's a market which is going in negative. And if there is going to be so much confluence of weapons, so much confluence of fighters, what will you be looking at? You'll be looking at a state in total paralysis. And that state will not function and at any level. Today, they are dealing with Kabul as a convening point. They're dealing with the Taliban regime as a convenient point. Tomorrow, once they have got this endless supply to weapons, what's going to happen? There is going to be a tipping point, and once that happens, you're going to be having 100 years of civil war in Afghanistan. And that 100 years of civil war in Afghanistan is going to take not only the region back, but also going to take wherever there are Afghan refugees anywhere in the world actually linked back to it. And then it turns into also a drug trade. You are quite familiar with it, that just yesterday, Pakistan actually intercepted $976 billion worth of, a ship which was containing drugs. And 80% of those drugs were coming from where? They were coming from Afghanistan. They were coming from Afghanistan, which were interdicted. They were going to Saudi Arabia and to the region. So this is just the trade which was going from here to Saudi Arabia, in which the international task force with CENTCOM, with Pakistan Navy, managed to stop it. So we are looking at $1.2 billion, which is just a simple introduction. But it is giving the scale of the problem. The scale of the problem is it's going to turn into a narco trade country. It's going to turn into a weapons black market country. It's going to turn into a terror country. And what happens? Is this sustainable? It's not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable in Colombia. It's definitely not going to be sustainable over here. And then who is going to be in the middle of it? And who benefits from it? And how do you negotiate with a narco trade country which thinks that, all they need to do is to plow certain things, sell some of these weapons and nothing is going to happen. So there is a global responsibility, but most importantly, there's an American responsibility. Because according to their Department of Defense, they're supposed to take care of these weapons. They were supposed to either give it to the region or dismantle them.
Absolutely, this is what we discussed.
And they have not done that. So, at this moment, they are liable under the Chemicals Weapons Convention to, account for every weapon there. And what about their veterans? And what about the fact that all this money, which is right now going around $4.2 billion, which is going directly to the Taliban regime in lieu of the ANA services, while the ANA does not exist in Afghanistan at the moment. So these are big question marks, and I think it needs to be highlighted that this is not about a good Taliban or bad Taliban. We are dealing with a very structurally different organizational footprint on ground in Afghanistan, which is representing that of a criminal state rather than that of an ideological state.
We are dealing with a unibody monster, in fact. Air Marshal Said Khan, as pointed out by Dr. Mahir Sultan, the narco money, we talk about the, the terror financing. Of course, the money is coming from India. We know that. And then this very important revelation that Pakistan, helped capture about $1 billion drugs. So the narco trade, of course, financing the terror in the region in general and in Pakistan in particular. So that was the complexity I was talking about when I said that it's not oversimplistic fight on terror. We are dealing with a very, very complex situation where there are weapons available in Afghanistan, where there's a narco trade going on, where Americans left behind a legacy of destabilization of this particular region. Leaving Afghanistan, without any orderly government in power, which fell within no time. And now, all is left to deal, for Pakistan to deal with this very complex situation. What is the way forward in your opinion, as was being pointed out by Dr. Mahir Sultan?
The way forward is only one, and that is that all the countries of the region have to, and the world powers have to become very strong in dealing with Afghanistan. They have enough money.
But shouldn't we engage the Americans now? We remind them.
That is what I'm saying. That
this is what you left
all
behind.
The countries of the
this
region.
Is what is causing the spike in terror in Pakistan, doubling the number of terror attacks since 2021.
That is exactly, Javed sir, what I'm saying. That the countries of the region and the superpowers must get together now. And we must ensure that Afghanistan is now dealt with a very strong hand. And that strength can only come if we form regional unions to ensure that if they export terrorism from their country to other countries, they are going to be dealt very severely. Like Pakistan has created a very good example by showing them that if they create terror in Pakistan, we are going to come into your country and destroy your outfits. Think of it, Javed Sahab, if there are 8 countries of the region trying to do the same to Afghanistan, they will eventually, they are going to understand their hard work. the hard hand, being taken against them. But in parallel, we must also engage them so that their economic activity, we must give them the options that if you behave like a good country, we can, all the countries in the region can help Afghanistan in standing on its own feet by engaging it for economic gains. There is a lot that Afghanistan can uh, earn through transit trade. There is a lot which they can export to other countries. There is a lot which other countries can export to them. But this will only happen when they start thinking like a normal state. Unfortunately, at this time, we have an interim government in Afghanistan. So all the countries of the region and especially America must now start looking at forming up a permanent government in Afghanistan so that these steps which you are highlighting can be undertaken. This interim government neither has the power nor the intention to undertake such an activity.
Okay. Dr. Maria Sultan, this, the ongoing process of negotiations between Pakistan and Taliban regime in Kabul, the first round took place in Doha, Qatar, and the second is going to be held in Istanbul, Turkey. Now, when we talk about the complexity of the issue, these two countries could at best provide a kind of a facilitation to bring the two countries or Taliban regime in Kabul and Pakistan on the negotiating table. But no guarantees can work as far as Afghanistan is concerned, either the Turkish guarantee or the Qatari guarantee that the Talibans would behave in future and they would not provide sanctuaries and safe havens to the terror outfits. It would be ultimately on Pakistan to deal with this issue, though of course ceasefire is a very good thing that ultimately we have been able to conclude or rather formalize the ceasefire. But the challenge is still there. Ceasefire is not the issue. It is rather the byproduct of the ongoing terror activities in Pakistan. So how do you see this process going forward? With the logical conclusion that Afghanistan does realize that they will have to eliminate and dismantle the terror safe havens on their own soil. Dr. Maria.
Thank you very much, Javed Sahab. I think, inclusion of Qatar and Istanbul is not a small thing. It is Pakistan's success because the Qatar process and the Istanbul process was actually, the lifeline for them to have this false arrogance that they could actually communicate with the United States, could communicate with the world, and they would always find a way, a willing house, which is going to allow them to work further and carry out their ambitions. So the pretense of a state was actually being managed because of the technical legitimacy which was being afforded to them by their interactions with various factions of the United States. So this is what was being done. So the fact that, we are sitting in Qatar, we are sitting in Istanbul, and we are talking to these two very important conduits for the normalization of the Taliban regime and their interactions with the rest of the world, especially with the West, I think, and also with the Middle East, is significant that Pakistan has managed to dominate it. Not only managed to dominate it, but Pakistan sits squarely, and there is one message and one message alone, that there is going to be no terrorism. If there is going to be terrorism, there are going to be consequences. Our institute had started the Islamabad process, and as a result of that Islamabad process, I would second what Emerson Said had said. This had a diverse group of Afghan leaders, educators, different people, and representing not only the North, but representing different factions of Afghanistan. And the message was very simple. The message was that we are not anti-Taliban, we are pro-Afghans, because we believe that the Afghan state needs to come back to its normal state. And if these people cannot do the job of leadership, if they cannot do the job of regional peace and regional security, they cannot do the piece of understanding the fact that it's different when you're fighting in your own homeland for your own freedom or for your own right of expression. But it's different when you become the mastermind or you become a quiet and an open facilitator of terrorism in the region. Because once you do that, you will be held accountable. So these are not Pakistani lives which are being lost. These are global lives which are going to have a global impact in terms of global security considerations. And that's the reality of it. Now, coming to what will be the guarantee? The guarantee is the political lifeline. The guarantee is the fact that not only are we dominating the military spectrum, which we have indicated to them, we are dominating the internal spectrum, in which we have been very firm about the Afghan refugees leaving Pakistan. And there were a lot of people who had said to us that Pakistan would not manage to do it because we are having refugees since 1990s or even earlier than that. And therefore, this entire exercise is going to be fraught with corruption, and the actual deliverables on ground would not be significant for the Taliban regime to actually consider this as a positive traction. That has been done, and at the same time, in this Islamabad process also, we very clearly stated to them that, the region needs to move forward. And the only way the region can move forward is that you let go of terrorism and you embrace economic connectivity, you embrace economic future, and you rewrite that. Now, what is hurting them is the fact that on the political spectrum, we have managed to dominate and intercede whatever they were having, the connections with Qatar and the Istanbul process. So it's not like they can bypass Pakistan, bypass the Islamabad process, and just go to the Qatar process or go to the Istanbul process, and they will continue to act all hot and mighty. So we closed that loop. We communicated them clearly. We communicated to the people of Afghanistan. Now this other person, Mr. Nouri, and these people, they have been, one of their factions, which is actually at Guantanamo Bay, exploitees. They had ensured that the human trafficking and all of the other aspects, especially in the border, border areas and others, they should not be affected. The people should not come to know what exactly that they're doing. So they could come up with their own narrative. You have questioned that. You've given a very clear military signal. You've given a very clear indication that on Afghanistan, you will cover the entire spectrum, from the internal dynamic to the external, and from the external to the military, from the military to the political, and from the political to the international, where you have managed to get these organizations funded by India, such as BLA, BRAS, and TTP as terror organizations, and then also to hold the Taliban factions responsible for it. So I think to call them even a regime is a misplacement of the facts on ground, because this is not a regime. These are various groups which were in dominance in Afghanistan because they had access to humanitarian aid.
Okay.
They had access to Qatar process. They had access to Doha process and Istanbul process. And at the same time, they thought they have established a very strong link with the Indian establishment. And because they had established this link, they thought that money would continue to fall in and they could continue to intimidate Pakistan through terrorism.
Okay.
It's like what our defense minister said to them. Because the moment he got in to the talks, they said Pakistan should understand that we have other tactics also. And what did our defense minister tell him?
Okay.
He turned around and he said, why don't you go and do that? And then he can talk.
Okay.
So the reality is that factions in power who want to dominate access to the West, to the international arena, at the behest of terrorism.
Okay.
And
Thank you
that's
so much,
unacceptable.
Dr. Maria. We'll have to leave it here because we are running out of time. Air Marshal Saeed, finally, will Afghan Taliban use this pause to regroup, or they are genuinely interested in resolving this terror conundrum with Pakistan?
Javed Sahab, I think the situation will be clear tomorrow once Pakistan and Afghans, we both meet again
on 25th
in
of
Turkey.
October, this month, yes.
Tomorrow. So I am, as a Pakistani, I am really hopeful that, sense should prevail in Kabul, and they should look at it not as a pause to regroup, but as a pause to rebuild their own country. Because if they do not, Pakistan is very clear now that we are not going to let them enter into our country and create havoc with the people, with our people, the way they are doing. And we are now going to go inside them into their own territory and destroy them on their own land.
Demonstrated that as well, very effectively.
And we have,
loud and clear.
And this is not the guerrilla type of warfare they have been fighting with the other countries. It's a conventional war, and they are no match to us in that.
Thank you so much, Air Marshal Retired Saeed Khan. With this, we come to the end of this show, and I'm Javed Khan Jadoon saying Allah Hafiz.